Welcome everybody to the MGH brain-PBM clinic round. Today is January 26, 24, and it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Manuel Halter, who is at Plena Human Performance LLC, and today we'll discuss the implication of using photobiomodulation for VA and biological biometrics. Thank you so much, Manuel, for being here, and please take it away.
Thank you, Paulo. Thank you so much for having me. And, you know, this is a great segue because as we're talking about the VA, the presentation that I'm about to give you guys was actually created for the VA, specifically to show them how we can use actually objective metrics to show that somebody's improving, not just using self-report measures or, people, giving their story about how they feel like the things improved. So let me share my screen real quick. I hope you guys can see my screen.
We can.
Okay. So there's this program here in Tampa at the Tampa VA. I personally, I'm a special operations soldier, retired. After I retired, I realized I had a lot of stuff going on, from TBIs to PTSD and other stuff. So me and a lot of other veterans here at MacDill Air Force Base at US SOCOM have known about this program, and we've always said that, well, did you get better after this program? Everybody said yes. Well, what can you show me? And crickets. So again, nothing objective. So I decided, okay, I had a friend of mine who was about to start this program. So I told him, hey, let's do your EEG assessment, collect your HRV metrics, and do a neurocognitive assessment pre and post to see, what the changes are, just so we have something objective. So when I first, I thought, okay, maybe we'll see something, maybe we won't. But the results are astonishing. And yes, this is one person who I'm going to be presenting to you, but the results are common across all the soldiers that we sent to this program at the Tampa VA. And it's specifically called the Post Rehabilitation and Evaluation Program. They do not currently use tPBM. However, the person who I'm going to present to you guys, this person on the weekends, 3 days in a row, did transcranial PBM. So that was part of the training or the treatment program that he engaged in. So let's get started. So I'll be talking about what the purpose, which I just did, about this presentation. I'll give you some background information, and then I'll show you some pre and post EEG metrics, HRV metrics, and neurocognitive performance results. If you have questions at any time, please feel free to interrupt me. I do not see the chat right now, so if somebody can watch that for me and let me know if there are any questions, I'll be sure to answer whatever questions you may have. So again, the purpose of this was to offer some objective psychophysiological metrics to support the effectiveness of the VA post-deployment and rehabilitation and evaluation program. One prerequisite of this program is that a person has a history of TBIs. So that is one of the main criteria. And of course, the symptom presentation is part of what they consider in moving the person, to the front of the line, or you have the person wait for a while. So again, these are the different treatment modalities that the person went through. They did some cognitive processing therapy. And again, the two that I want to highlight here are transcranial photobiomodulation and HRV training, which I monitored the person for. Now, I wasn't in the program, but that person is a friend of mine, so I monitored this person's HRV training and the results via Elite HRV, although the training was conducted on HeartMath. And I also did 3 times 20 minutes a week of transcranial PBM, and it was continuous. So no frequency of any kind, just continuous PBM. So again, the assessment conditions, so the medications were no medications were taken the day prior to the assessment, with the permission of the person's prescriber, of course. And both of the assessments, pre and post, were done within 1 hour of the same time of the day, just to make sure that it wasn't any kind of endocrine factors or other factors that may, somehow affect the results. So I wanted to minimize the confounding variables as much as possible. Also, when I artifacted the EEG, I did not use ICA because I wanted to also be able to look at the connectivity metrics. And so I used manual artifacting as well as the well, they call it in NeuroGuide, they call it what's it called? The automatic artifact rejection. And then I got the results that I got. Also, I looked at the HRV metrics and the HRV records, not just in iSync Wave or iSync Brain's platform, but also on Kubio's. And the results were identical in general. So again, the caveat here, this is one veteran. This program was 8 weeks long. And this person, again, some of the other things this person did was speech therapy, art therapy, abstinence from alcohol or any drugs, then occupational therapy with alpha stim, some then vision assessment, auditory assessment, physical therapy, and anger management classes. And all of these, all of it, like I have this pink that you see here on the screen, this shaded area, and those are corroborated by the assessment results. So the major diagnoses of this veteran were major depressive disorder, PTSD, post-concussive syndrome, substance use disorder, heavy drinker, sleep quantity and quality. Oops, there's a typo. Issues. And so those are the major diagnoses that the person had been given. Then on the left here, you see some of the symptoms pre-PrEP and post-PrEP. So you can see there was a drastic symptom reduction. The main complaint afterwards was balance and some kind of a little bit of moderate levels of anxiety. So, but all the other ones there, this person actually sleeps better now, sleeps at least 6 to 7 hours a night, whereas before slept about 2 to 3 hours a night. Also was able to get into the deep sleep and REM sleep stages of sleep. These are the previous dosages and medications prescribed to the individual, pre and post. Again, none of the medications were taken prior to the assessment, just to, we looked at the half-lives just to minimize the interaction or the effect of these drugs on the assessment process. So we used this iSync Wave to collect the EEG data. I actually did it myself, just to make sure that I could actually collect a clean EEG. As you know, a lot of the dry systems, or some of you may know, aren't ready yet for the quality of the data is not as good as with the wet systems that I've used. So that's another caveat. But in general, the results and the EEG were clean and representative of what the brain activity was. So again, this is the helmet that we use for photobiomodulation. Also, when we did the photobiomodulation, we started with the iSync Wave, then went on to the neuronic equipment. So thank you, Marvin. So again, that's the equipment that we use for continuous PBM. Then for the neurocognitive assessment, I used the brain gauge. There's some literature behind it. It's by a company called Cortical Metrics. Mark Tomerdahl from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, he developed this hardware and software application. And as you can see here, the main reason why I used it is because I was working in the performance area for a major part of my job. And so I wanted to see what the improvements, just very slight improvements in a person's reaction time. As you can see, usual touch screen or mouse or other devices that use reaction time, there is a larger amount of latency. The Brain Gauge Pro, the one that I used, has a latency of of plus or minus 3 milliseconds. That is why I liked using it. It's also FDA approved. There's a one-time cost, and you can monitor as many people over time, and you'll see the pre and post assessment of this individual and the results. Also, other than other neurocognitive assessments, what I like about this device, it measures certain building blocks of cognition and not various different parts like most of the regular neuropsych assessments. They use different types of assessments that measure too many things at one time. So it becomes more difficult to tease out exactly what is going on with a person. That way, if I, for example, was looking at the frontostrial pathway, I didn't have to, do all these comparison tests. I could actually just look at one or two of these tests, and again, correlate them with what I see in the EEG and the connectivity in the EEG. And so I was able to validate or cross-validate the results from a performance metric that I used, and then comparing it to the functional metrics of HRV and brain activity from the EEG. So the main thing I want you guys to focus on is the pictures. I know that a bunch of you and again, this is just a cursory type of presentation. Again, if you guys are more interested in some of the details and specifics, I'm available for that as well. So here are the topographic maps of pre and post. And as you can see, a lot of the different areas normalized that were dysregulated initially. It's nicer to look at 3D images. So here's the same thing in 3D. Again, the activity that we see in beta 3 and gamma, that was also still visible after, again, which corresponds to the person's slight or moderate anxiety levels, as well as their primary motor and some other sensory issues. Here is what I saw in the EEG, just looking at the posterior dominant rhythm, pre and post. As you can see, there was too much slow activity or slowing of the brain, not enough juice, so not enough power or amplitude in the posterior dominant rhythm. The frequency did not change, but as you can see, the thalamocortical connections were drastically improved. And this is just an example of how we can see that. Hey, look, here's an objective metrics that now the brain is normalizing. Again, here we see from the theta alpha ratio initially, and also delta alpha ratio, way too much slow activity. And again, this person had a history of TBIs. At the time, I think this person was 46 or 47. And again, I also compared him to another database or another index that iSync Wave put out there. Oh, and by the way, there's no conflict of interest in any way, shape, or form. I do not get paid by any of the companies that I'm mentioning. I'm just letting you know what the equipment was that I used, just so that you have more information about that. So this is the index, the cognitive impairment index that iSync Brain has out there. Again, just looking at this, I mean, looking at the probability of a minor cognitive impairment went from 63.6 down to 13.1. That's huge. And I don't know how else to explain it, but this is just one example, one metric, or now I've shown you two, the posterior dominant rhythm, and now this AMCI, and then also the brain maps. Again, lots of changes, drastic changes. At first, initially, I thought, wait, maybe I have the wrong person here, but it was the same person, same birth date, right number. Yes, I have the right person. So again, here's the other eye condition, the eyes open condition. Same thing, drastic normalization with exception of the anxiety levels or the central part of the brain here. Again, 3D maps make it look prettier. Again, here's the pre to post ratios. Again, normalized quite drastically. And here, this is where it gets really exciting because, as I said, this person did actually do some HRV training while in the program. And this is correct. This person's heart rate, resting heart rate previously was 123.07. Afterwards, their mean heart rate was 65.8. Again, same time of the day, didn't do any kind of exercising or use of medications or any kind of drinking too much espresso or whatever. So again, this is actual real results. Then when I look at the total power, went from 34 all the way to 35,000. Here, when I look at the stress index, went from 1,021 down to 25.8. And I'll just let me show you what that corresponds to. And I should have put this in my slide, so excuse me. So let me just stress. There we go. So again, this person went to more than 1,000, very high levels of stress and poor prognosis here. This guy did not have any kind of heart conditions or diabetes, but again, severe PTSD.
Manuel, we're still seeing the original slide.
Oh, sorry. Let me reshare. Let me just share the whole screen so you guys can see this. Can you see it now?
We can.
Okay, so this is based on the Bayevsky index. And this person was at more than 1,000. So very high levels of stress. Again, severe PTSD. And this guy was in a very dark place. Also, now he was at normal stress levels. So that is what I want to show you with this. Let's go back to the presentation. So I have to move things around here. So again, when it comes to the different stages of stress, this is one kind of nice thing that I think Brain has on their website or on their platform. And again, this person was in resistance, quite high levels of stress, chronic stress, down to homeostasis. And again, to remind you, the two things that I think personally had the biggest effect, because none of the other things that the person really did, this person felt had any effect on him. Apart from this heart rate variability training, alpha stim, and the transcranial photobiomodulation. So here's the neurocognitive performance changes. Pre and post. Again, this person went from an overall score of 44. The score is from 0 to 100. 100 is perfect performance. 0 is it can't do anything on that specific test or can't really accomplish the task. All the way to an of a 91 overall score. These are huge changes. So again, to summarize, using this kind of assessment process, and it doesn't have to be the exact equipment I used, but using, self-report metrics that are appropriate along with HRV metrics, neurocognitive assessment of some type, and an EEG will drastically, or will give us the quantitative data, the objective data that we need to corroborate that this or any type of program is working. And again, this person did the tPBM, or transcranial photobiomodulation, and heart rate variability training. The heart rate variability training was almost daily, whereas the photobiomodulation was just on the weekends when the person went home. So on Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, for about 20 minutes a day of continuous PBM. So that is all for my presentation. I know it was really quick and dirty, but if there are any questions, I'm open to answering any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you so much. Would you mind and sharing? That's great, so we can see better if there are any questions. I have a quick one. First of all, very inspiring, and if you agree, we can even send the recording of your presentation when we submit the petition. But that's something we can discuss afterwards.
Sure. Whatever helps, you can do with this whatever you want. This is for you guys, and I already sent the VA in Tampa a copy of the presentation, so they have one. I don't know what they're doing with it, but they have it. And again, the more of us that actually go out there and advocate for this, the hopefully will be heard, and hopefully we can get this photobiomodulation as well as other stuff into the VA and actually use these objective metrics as assessment tools to show the real true change. So when I asked this individual if he had gotten anything from them to show that he improved, he said no, but while I was there, some representative from the government came. He didn't really know who that person was, but they wanted to interview me to see how this improved my my general well-being. And again, and I was thinking to myself, well, apart from your testimony, there's nothing really. So this would give them the numbers that they need to justify, financing these kind of programs and this equipment. It's not difficult. It's actually relatively easy to do. This whole assessment process that I use literally takes me about an hour to do, and then another hour to clean the data, and then I can give the person a review of their data. But
Right. A quick question. So I know that there were several interventions here, and you're familiar with the program. You're, of course, familiar with the HRV training. How much of the benefit do you think it's in fact related to PBM compared to what you would otherwise see with the program and with the HRV training?
well, with other individuals whose pre and post assessment I did, who did some of the HRV training but didn't do any of the photobiomodulation, we saw improvements. However, especially in the autonomic nervous system, so like the HRV metrics, but like I said, I've not seen these drastic changes in brain activity in the EEG as I have with this person. And also with other people who've, there are 5 other people who are currently using PBM along with HRV training, along with what they give them in the program. And they should be done with the program pretty soon, so I'll hopefully be able to do their post assessment as well. But this was a pretty bad case, and this person showed drastic improvements that I've not seen using any type of regular cognitive processing therapy, just a minor change in medication. I can't explain it in any other way. Now, having an actual experiment or even just a validation study would be awesome.
Absolutely. Any questions, any comments?
Paula, this is Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Can you hear me?
We
Yes,
can.
I can.
Okay, I just wanted to chime in. I think this is really interesting because it's a multi-method assessment study, and it still includes the kind of standard self-report, so you can relate it to the other literature that's out there.
Correct.
As limiting as self-report is in general, and we're always looking for that holy grail of like objective findings that we can look at. This is objective findings that basically says there's biological activity and influences that seems to follow from PBM. With any of these assessment measures, the key is connecting it to some external criterion that is important for whatever questions need to be asked. So in the clinical sphere, I mean, we're probably searching for changes in psychosocial functioning across multiple domains. And then you would look at it and say, well, you've got these EEG changes. How are they related to their daily functioning? And because the VA is a service organization, they're interested in how treatments improve the lives and performances of the veterans that are there, not just in underlying mechanisms.
Mhm.
And then I was sort of more, I'm just going to just broadly say that's like an academic question. They're interested in sort of the functioning. And this sort of dovetails with the start that Harvey had talked about in terms of getting this petition out there, because that's really where the VA lives. I mean, part of its mission is to help the veterans, that had served, not just understand their conditions, which is part of their research mission, but more generally, how are they doing? I mean, think of it, the VA has HSR&D as one of its branches, Health Service and Research and Development, where they're basically saying, let's look at how well we do at providing services. I mean, that's not real common in most organizations, that they're interested in that, and they're funding studies to look at that particular aspect. So Marty's on the call today, and she and I have been working for a long time with this, and we've gotten grants from
I
the
am
VA.
on the call, Jeff. I'm
Yeah, I
here.
know. I saw you.
Okay. I thought you thought it was.
Um,
No problem.
and we've gotten grants from the VA to study this, and it's not been easy. And part of it, I think, is related to the fact that these findings and testimonials are exactly what you said. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen this kind of improvement, or to this degree, or of this kind, or you hear the collaterals coming forward from the family talking about the changes that they've noticed, which may not be part of your formal measurement protocol. And you hear it all the time, that you get to the point, it's not surprising. But it is surprising to people who've worked in the area of, let's say, head injury, where there is no first line treatment, there's no first line drug that's there. There's typically complementary and ancillary treatments to help people do better, but not directly treating the underlying injury. And it just surprises people, I think, to the fact that they sort of just don't believe it. So when you're asking for the VA to support it, there's a lot of just, people folding their arms and, kind of looking at you and basically saying, convince me. And even with this good data, these good data, it doesn't do it. And if I can share with the group, one of the sets of feedback from one of the grants that I put in, the pink sheets came in, and the summary started out by saying, this is an interesting idea. It seems feasible. There's a good grant team there. We believe that they can actually, conduct the study. It's well written and designed. However, it requires the reviewers to believe that this is an actual phenomena. That was written in the feedback coming back. Okay. Now, I'm thinking that almost looks like you could be sued for saying something like that in terms of liability. But what it basically shows is saying, yeah, you presented a good case and everything's supported the way you wanted it to be. But I don't know, this just seems like a magic or something. And these are for people who don't know enough about it to be able to say, because they haven't experienced it, they don't use it, and they don't see it. But that's out there. And I think this is one of the things that, we're running up against when we're trying to move this forward. Back in, I don't know how
Jeff,
long ago.
if I may interrupt 1 second, was there a question here? I think your point is well taken. I see other people are raising their hand. I'm just
Sure. I
looking
can
at
stop.
the...
I don't want to go on too long, but
No,
I just
no.
want to get that in.
If you have also a question to ask in the, related to this matter or to the petition, whatever you think.
Are you talking to me? Do I have a question?
Yes.
I guess it wasn't, I hadn't formulated it as as much as a question, as a bunch of ruminations about this. I've thought about this a lot, because we bump up into this, and it's really sort of like, what's the best way going forward to try to have a convincing case that represents both the data that we have and that people see, but then, as an initiative, how do we best get that across to the people that need to be looking at it? How's that for question?
Great. Then I don't know if both Manuel and Harvey want to answer.
Having worked and still working with the U.S. SOCOM here, the most difficult thing, again, getting out there is getting the people to actually just doing it. Just look, if you don't believe in it, we can use several different gold standard assessments along with these objective measures to show them that they corroborate one another. For example, the assessment that I do, I don't just give them these objective tests. I also add in other measures that have been used as the gold standards for all these different diagnoses. Yes, we can do that as well. And they do highly correlate the results and the improvements of those measures themselves. It speaks for itself, and it's, trust me, I've been doing this for the VA for 7 years, not VA, the SOCOM for 7 years, and slowly but surely, General Fenton at SOCOM, he's the commanding general. He's a believer. He's trying to do what he can, but again, it's tough. I understand.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've got a patient who's had a traumatic brain injury and suffers severe post-traumatic stress disorder. She's a VA patient. They authorized me to work on her lower back pain, but I'm going to engage her in a PBM study, and I'm going to make use of this brain gauge that Manuel made reference to, because I'd like to get some objective data before and after and see how she responds. And also, I've become aware of visual contrast sensitivity tests. It's a test to measure the flow of blood through the retina. And the retina is very close to the brain. So when you have blood flow through the retina, it's indicating the level of cytokines in the brain. If you have a high cytokine level in the brain, you have reduced blood flow in the brain. So they're two very, very easy tests to do. I'm going to document this case, and I'll present it later on in a few months after I get to see what the results are.
Thank you. We have 4 questions lined up. So Hanley, you're first.
Hello. I have 3 maybe simple questions. The first one is really, it was either too fast or it's a combined between the EEG helmet versus the light stimulation helmet. So the first question is, what is the actual setup for your stimulation? Is that local stimulation or the whole head stimulation? So that's the first one. The second one is really about that 3-dimensional reconstruction image. How did you form that? I mean, what software did you use that allows you to really use a 19-channel EEG to form a three-dimensional source-based reconstruction. The third one is really the last behavioral measure. Is really crossing. I mean, those are relatively amazing, from 40% up to 90%. But I wonder, does that have some kind of a learning effect to go across that long 4 months of period? So those are my 3 questions.
You're
Am
muted.
I heard?
Manuel, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
So for the transcranial PBM, right now for this patient, I use the neuronic device. The first session we did with the iSync helmet was a little bit heavy, but then we went over to the neuronic equipment. And we did continuous PBM. Then for the EEG assessment, or this whole assessment process, I actually, so in special operations, I was the intel sergeant for my team. So it was my job to gather all the evidence that's out there and put them together as, just to triangulate what's really going on. A rule of thumb was to have at least 3 independent sources that could corroborate information to make it actionable. So I was thinking to myself, hey, self, what can we use? So I used the self-report measures that are already out there and the interviews that are already out there, and just, what people use as the gold standards for diagnosis. That's the information that is just the person endorses themselves. Then I have the EEG and heart rate metrics. So HRV and EEG metrics, and I use a 19-channel system. And those are the functional metrics that's I collect. That's another source of data. Then I use a performance measure, such as the brain gauge. And now I have 3 different sources of data that give me the same information about this individual and their overall functioning, psychophysiological functioning. So that's how this process is put together. Now, software-wise, I've used every major software out there, from WinEEG, iSync Brain, NeuroGuide, and yes, that are out there. For court cases specifically, where somebody may either get capital cases, basically, I use NeuroGuide, and I do not like using ICA. My personal opinion, and I know there's a lot of debate out there, but that's again, I use for the images, I use all sorts of different software applications, and sometimes I use 2 or 3 just to see what the information that they give me. And usually the stuff that's corroborated by all the software. And I like using Kubios for HRV metrics. It's very reliable. I can import data from all sorts of sources into Kubios and look at the HRV metrics. The brain gauge takes 15 minutes to do. It's the tasks are very discrete, easy to look at what functions or what networks in the brain are associated with those. And so I use that. I think I answered all the questions.
The last one is really I think 2 last pages, or the page before your last, that 2 points from
oh yeah,
earlier.
Is that practice effect?
Yeah.
No, there's not. And there's no fake, you can't fake bad, because if you go through the assessment, you have to be able to answer a certain level correctly before you can actually start the real assessment. And so if you immediately stop performing without getting any feedback, then, it doesn't let you continue. So the same thing about the practice effects.
Yeah.
So this person did this test once before, didn't know they were going to do it again. Then they did it 8 weeks later, or actually even more than 8 weeks. The program was 8 weeks, but it was whatever the dates.
Got it.
So it was quite a long time.
Yeah.
And the assessment is actually conducted with your sense of touch. So it's 2 fingers.
Yeah.
And it asks you, hey, when you feel like a stimulation or a vibration, one finger, press with the other one, so that
Got it.
instinct. Yeah.
Okay, actually, quickly, what's the wavelengths did you use? Because they have 2 wavelengths. One is 810, the other one is 1070. So which wavelengths did you use?
I used the 1070 from Neuronic.
Yeah. Thank you.
All
Uh-huh.
right. So we do have 3 more questions. So try to do question maybe 1 minute and 1 minute answer. Joe, you're next.
Yeah, thank you Manuel, for your great work, and mission accomplished. You did your triangulation. Thanks for that. But you did to familiarize the group with a lot of the brain gauge stuff. There's a lot more parameters that you tested that, I was hoping to see a couple more pictures of the brain gauge changes. Do you think that those are relevant for us to see, or did you not see anything conclusive? Because most of those changes are going to be dramatic from what you demonstrated.
Oh, yes. Yes, I could show those, but I'd have to actually go into the brain gauge and look into all those metrics.
Okay.
I can prepare it, or I can send you the data of all these different, because again, I showed you the overall score and not all the individual scores. But yes, there were drastic changes in all of them. Let me just bring up the slide one more time if I can share. So just go back here. So here are all the individual tasks. As you can see, there was an improvement in all of them. But on the software itself, in the brain gauge, it actually lets you know what areas or what networks of the brain are addressed. It also lets you know how it's calculated, how the number is calculated. They also show that on their website. Also, in addition to that, what they show you, or what this tells you, is it gives you the specific time differences, like in reaction time, for pre and post, and from the first reaction time test to the next one. So it gives you all those numbers very nicely. This is just an overall kind of picture, just to give you guys a general impression.
Thank you. Well done.
Great. And Mitchell, you're next.
Thank you so much for the lecture. Emmanuel, just 2 questions. What was the frequency used for the tPBM? And number 2, why did you choose continuous over pulse method?
I used 1070 from Neuronic just because this person had so much stuff going on all over the brain. And so I just went with, just the continuous all 4 quadrant type of stimulation, because I didn't even know that how much it would do to the person or for the person. At the time, this person was interested in trying it, was going through the program. So it's like, hey, let's just do this and see if this works as well. So again, it was almost just, hey, let's see what we can do for you here and see if it makes an improvement. This person was really suffering badly, so I tried to give him everything I could. And because there wasn't just one area that was affected in his brain, there were so many different areas that needed some kind of recovery. And so I decided to go with continuous stimulation at 1070.
Oh, I'm so sorry. In terms of frequency, I was thinking that usually, like with V-Light, they use like between the 10 hertz or 40 hertz.
Oh, I didn't use any. I used continuous.
Okay.
So I didn't use the frequencies. Yeah. However, the first time where we did the PBM with the iSync wave, yes, we did it at 14 hertz.
14. Okay, great. Okay.
14 hertz. So, but again, it was 850, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Marnie, you're next.
Okay, thank you. I do have a fairly quick question. I wanted to comment regarding if you're making grant applications or you want to get a paper published. Nowadays, they want to see sham treatment. So if you're dealing with 1070 near infrared, the patient's not going to see that. Am I correct? There is no red at all? Okay, thank you, Marvin. And so you could easily do sham. Now, I am kind of confused about how many, you did these 3 days and you did that 3 weeks. Now, was that 3 weeks in a row?
No, it was 3 days for 8 weeks.
Okay, so it was over 8 weeks. Okay, yes. Then how long after that 8th week did you do your post testing?
Let's see. Let me just look at the dates again. I have to look at the presentation real quick. So the start date or the first assessment was 8/22/2022. This person started at the end of February of 2023 and was done April 12th. So I did the post assessment 5 days after the program. And
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, so what I was going to say is it is difficult to design sham controlled studies. It's difficult, but if you really want to make a change and you want the VA people, whoever came to visit you, to believe you, I think that your data are so powerful with your EEG data that if you're doing sham, they would believe that. I don't know if you could get somebody to stay. It's difficult to get them to stay, your participants, to stay in a program if they are not seeing any change at all. In our work, we did do whole head and we treated Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 6 weeks. So we end up with 18 treatments. And they start to talk to us when they come back. We're doing real, of course, after about 3 weeks. So that would be the 12 treatments. And so you don't want your sham people to drop out. You really need those data. So I don't know if you really need to go your 8 weeks or you could go 6 weeks. And could be quite, I don't know what's going on. I've never treated anybody Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you get your time off 4 days, and then you go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and on it, and for, your 8 weeks. So it's just something to consider. I don't know how you chose that, but I guess this is not taking place at a VA medical center.
Yeah.
It's outside, and so you could sort of do what you wanted. Most papers that are previously published do Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 6 weeks, whatever. So I just wanted to comment on stressing, please give the VA some sham control data because that's what they like. If you really change their thinking, but you don't have money to do it, but you need the money to do it. So good luck. I don't know what to say, but thank you for doing it. Thank you.
Yes, and you're exactly right. And this was more convenient. This was more out of convenience to help this particular individual. I had no idea that I was going to get the results that I got. So it wasn't done intentionally. However, now I offer, if a person goes through this program, I offer them the assessment before and the assessment afterwards. And again, using sham control, that would be great if I would partner with somebody who would actually have who had the bandwidth to conduct an actual study. In my capacity working for SOCOM, I was mainly the practitioner trying to help people improve their cognitive performance. So that was the main issue that I have. But I just want to share the results because they were so drastic, and hopefully somebody out there.
Oh yeah, we've seen very dramatic. I mean, I'm sure Jeff and I could talk to you about the first cases in 2011 we published. You might want to look at that paper. The PTSD was very severe. The woman was jumping on the table in a boardroom and had no control whatsoever. And she was a pretty high executive. It was really something. So if you leave your email, I'll be glad to send you that paper. You would be interested in the case history. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We have one more question. Katayun, am I pronouncing your name right? You're muted.
Oh, well. Can't hear.
And now we should be able to hear you.
Oh, well.
We cannot hear you.
Hello, quick comment.
Sure, Marvin, why don't you go ahead and Katayun, see if you can solve the mute.
Manuel, it's great to see you do this, and I'm really happy that we were able to get the neuronic involved. I am working with the team at Walter Reed on a sleep disorder study where we're going to be comparing the 810 and the 1070 transcranial stimulation, and this technology. I mean, this study will be very helpful in getting their attention, and I think, if we can get a study set up at Walter Reed, it'll have a real potent disseminating impact. Definitely. So let's be in touch about that.
No worries. Yeah, sure.
I sent you an email already.
Thank you.
Katayun, are you able to?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
I don't know. No,
We
you
can
don't
hear
have
you.
my voice?
Yes, we can.
Okay, okay. Thank you for your presentation. I just want to know about the power density and the energy density that you have used in your study.
This wasn't an actual study, but I'd have to go back and check to see. I'm not from the top of my head. I don't know that information. I'm sorry. But if you send me your email, I'll look at it and send you that information.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Marvin can provide that information, I
Oh,
assume.
yes.
16 watts overall, and I think we're at about 20 milliwatts per centimeter squared.
There we go.
Yeah,
And
and
the energy
regarding
density, the
Marvin can
fluence.
add. Marvin,
yeah,
Marvin.
you're commenting on the milliwatt per centimeter square. So 20 minutes was the duration as far as I picked it up.
Yeah.
So the joules can be easily calculated. But what's very, very important about the energy density is the measurement device. And Neuronic ordered a pretty expensive one right now. The delivery time is 4 months, and we will receive it in hopefully February or March, and we will reevaluate our device and provide accurate information. So it might be that the dosage is actually just 50% of it, because some measurement devices measure also the thermal energy.
Okay.
Okay. I'm writing a systematic review in using the transcranial photobiomodulation in treatment of the brain disorders and in improvement of brain circulation, and also in modulation of brain neural oscillation. So I have used this information for my systematic review.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, we are towards the end. Marnie, I see your hand is still up. Did you have a no follow-up comments? I had a quick question. I was curious whether not only PBM made this substantial difference in brain activity, but if also as a result of that, it affected the HRV response. So do you know if the extent of the HRV response is just what you usually see in this population with HRV training, or if it was somewhat affected by transcranial PBM?
So this is a very it's a very difficult. Well, the question is relatively simple, but the answer is a little bit more difficult, because everybody is somewhat differently in their response to HRV, but I've never seen this kind of an improvement in the stress index and also in autonomic balance. I've just never seen it. So yes, I usually do see quite a change, especially if people do it consistently and learn how to breathe correctly first. I see quite drastic changes, but not like this. It would be difficult to say what percentage, but it's again, I haven't seen this drastic of a change.
I have.
With HRV?
Blood pressure follow.
I couldn't understand what you said.
In blood pressure and in heart rate variability, pre to post 9-minute treatments can be 10 to 20% changes.
Of HRV, just using HRV or
both HRV and blood pressure.
Okay.
Good.
Improving.
Okay.
We got to the end of the hour. This was quite an amazing case. Thank you so much, Manuel, and a discussion. And so I hope that many of you will support Harvey's endeavor and petition. And thank you for coming. Keep coming to our sessions. And thank you all for being here today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.